If you want to have a solid forehand, then you need to know how to hold the racket the right way. And I'm not just talking about grip. Too many times when we learn a grip, we learn how to put our hands around the racket, but we don't know how to maintain that grip through the stroke. And I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. So if you think it's just about having a semi-Western or Western grip, that's not it. Because I see players with semi-Western and Western and Eastern grips, and they make the mistake all the time, and it absolutely kills their forehand. So make sure you stay tuned. So in my last video, I talked about taking the racket back like this and how players are swinging like this and it kills their game. But there's another element of taking the racket back this where it kills you. And that means having a straight wrist. And you're thinking like, oh yeah, like of course. But even with the right grip, you can have the wrong placement of the grip and the wrong management of your wrist. And let me explain. When we're taking power from the ground, meaning we're loading our legs, we're rotating our hips, your arm acts as a bridge from that power from the ground, and it sends it, the power gets to go through the bridge to your hand. And this is a crucial point because at this point I see a couple mistakes being made that a lot of players are trying to snap through the ball. So just let's think about that for a second. We just took all this power from the ground to our legs, to our hips, and we're sending it forward, and then we're going to use that muscle. That's the weakest muscle in the chain, and we're going to use that to hit the ball. So literally right there, you've just disengaged all the power you just created. We don't want to do that. What we want to think about is pushing our palm through, just like this. Just if you were going to push a wall. I wouldn't go up to the wall and try to push it with my wrist, okay? Hence snapping at the ball. I would push forward with my palm. Now, how this relates to tennis is that I see players working on their grip and they have the right idea. They'll say, hey, I got to have a semi-Western grip. Okay, I know the pad here, I line it up here. It's a semi-Western grip. And then they swing with the semi-Western grip and I see the racket doing this action. It's this, or all these different motions, or they want an Eastern grip and they try to do the same thing and their wrist breaks down, meaning they start pushing forward like this. What we want to do is have where as we swing forward, the racket's in this prop back position here. It makes a slight L shape. It's not where, and I see this sometimes, where players are like pulling the racket back and the coach is making them stay like this and it puts a lot of stress here. It's where the racket's propped back and as we swing forward, it engages the hand. And so let me show you how it engages the hand. If you take your hand just like this and you push on this pad right here, you can feel how you can push against that pad. I do this with a lot of players where I say, show me your hand, and I find this pad and I have them push on me and they feel like, ooh, I get that sensation of the pressure on the pad. Well, the thing is, when we find our grip, we want to have two things going on. We want to use that pad and put that pad behind the racket, basically behind the strings. So if you have an Eastern grip, your grip would be here where my pad's behind 1, 2, 3, the third flat going right behind there. If you have a semi-Western grip, it's going to be on that bottom bevel here, or maybe that bottom edge flat here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you have a Western grip, it's going to be completely under. So it makes it a little bit harder to push through. And that's why sometimes with a Western, if you don't know how to use the rest of your body, it can be a little harder. Players are, if they're just swinging with their arm, it's harder to create power compared to swinging with their rotation, their hips. But so that's part number one. The second part is I see them bunching their fingers up together. And so they'll have the grip and they bunch it up together. And so even where you feel that pad, it doesn't feel stable in the hand. And so what happens is, because it doesn't feel stable in the hand, players are death gripping the racket to try to control it. It doesn't feel right. The optimal way of holding the racket is where the fingers are spread, okay? My fingers are spread here. Hopefully you can see that. And a great way of, I think, finding how it feels to spread your fingers is simply holding the racket, take your trigger finger and put it in the throat of your racket just like this, okay? Now, if I swing, look what happens. It puts myself in that position here. Just by having my finger in that throat, it puts my racket in this position. And this position is so important because now when I swing, it's comfortable, okay? I'm not having to pull it back here. And again, I'm just putting in there, really comfortable. You see this slot position? This is nice. So now, this is how it should feel when you're swinging through the ball. I'm using my weight, I'm transferring it through the bridge of my arm to the hand, and it's solid there. It's not going wristy. And even when I wrist here, you can see how the butt of the racket hits my hand. That's not good, okay? So when I'm swinging, you should feel as if the butt of the racket's not gonna hit your hand here. And so the very first drill I want you to do is actually swing with your racket like this. Now, you can do this short court because I don't care about you hitting it hard. I care about when I'm doing this, what's gonna happen is, boom, I don't feel the butt of the racket hitting my hand or my arm. If you are the type of person who's using a lot of wrist and you start doing this, guess what? You're gonna feel that make contact there. It's gonna be like an alarm system going, boop, up, you used your wrist, and you don't want that. So this is the very first drill I want you to do. Just start with the racket right here and just use your hips and body to come through and swing. If you don't know how to use your hips and rotate, make sure you go watch this video because it'll help you. But if you do, all we're gonna do is boom, okay? And basically I'm taking the racket, going through, and then I'm bending my elbow and coming around at the end. Don't worry about that, we're gonna do that in 1 second, but just for right now, boom, I can still hit the ball over. And this is gonna help teach you the correct way of holding and feeling the racket at contact, and also how to make it work in a second, okay? Compared to a lot of players, they're snapping forward. They're doing this to hit the ball, okay? And you get that sensation of like, ooh, I'm hitting my hand. That's not what you want. From here, now the second thing this teaches you to do is by holding it like this, you see how since the throat's coming through here, that's important because it's spreading my fingers out. I can't bunch everything up, it's spreading my fingers out. I need some lotion on the fingers, but it's spreading my fingers out. So as I come down here, I still have this gap. So I want you to pull your finger up out of this throat right now and then pull it down. And then all I want you to do is slide the finger onto the side. Find your grip. So you're still finding that pad, but you see how this grip now has, the way I'm holding the racket has a space. This is really important because now, bingo, this is the exact same position I was in before, but now instead of having it here, it's slightly under. And the nice thing about having it slightly under, this finger acts as leverage. So my pad is behind the racket and leverage under the racket, which makes it nice and easy to just take my finger and roll the racket through contact, okay? So meaning that I can now roll the racket to my finish. And that's the next part, is that when we go forward, we wanna go out towards the ball and then just simply turn your wrist over so the palm is facing out and bending the elbow. And that's the way you want to properly use your wrist to make sure through contact, you're sending the energy through the bridge of your arm out and around. And so now we're just gonna drill it. We're just gonna work it, making sure that you have this gap and you have a secure place of holding the racket through contact so it doesn't break down because you're snapping your wrist. And so what that looks like is just dropping the ball and going out and around, okay? Out and around. You can see my finish where my elbows coming in the center of my body and my palms up. So a couple more, just going out and around. And I'm getting plenty of topspin coming up. It feels very easy. And the biggest thing, it feels solid at contact. It doesn't feel like I'm wristing through. And so as I start generating more power using my legs and coming out and around, it continues to feel solid. And that's the way you're gonna hit more consistent forehand. So I hope you like this video. If you wanna learn more about how you can hit a better forehand, go watch this video because it's gonna help you break down the specific things to having a perfect forehand.